Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Marissa Laughlin. I am a holistic nutritionist and I love to talk about all things health and wellness. In one of my previous videos, I gave you guys an update on my 2021 garden plans and what I had decided to start as seedlings inside before we move them outside. If you haven't seen that video yet, I will leave it in the comments below. Go check it out. I talk about the seedlings that I am planning for this year, as well as some lessons that I learned from last year. So for the purpose of today's video, I want to give you guys an update on the blueprint of how we are setting up our 2021 garden, the new garden beds that we are adding into our plan this year, what we're filling these garden beds with, and also my plan for replanting my seedlings into the garden, as well as my companion planting structure based on the seeds that I am putting directly into the soil. You guys can also expect to see Huntley and Harper a lot in these videos as we are doing pretty much everything outside. Please keep in mind that this video has been recorded over a series of different days. Shay and I don't get very many days off together, so whenever we were able to, we did do some of these recordings, but there were some things I had to do with him and had to wait in order for that to happen. So they are a couple days apart, but basically it's a summary of how we have decided to build our 2021 garden, and fingers crossed it flourishes and we get lots of good vegetables out of our garden this year. So the sun is shining, it's absolutely gorgeous outside, but before we get to work, I'm gonna mix Shay and I a delicious salt hydration drink that I am currently loving, and I will show you the brand in just a second. All right, so lately we have been drinking these elemental salt hydration drinks, and they kind of replace like Gatorade or electrolyte blends as well, and they're just high in sodium and really good for these hot, warm days. All right guys, welcome to my backyard. So this is where our new garden location is gonna be, in our backyard. So that tall raised standing bed was the garden that I had last year. I loved it. I had great success with it. I loved that it was standing, so it didn't require so much bending down, and also that no critters got into it. So these are our 4 new garden beds that we're adding in this year, and Shay built these just using basic lumber 2x10s. I believe they're pine. It was really just whatever was cheap that we could get our hands on and hopefully expand our garden. So now that we have these laid out, the next thing that I need to do is add on a weed barrier fabric to the bottom of the beds. We originally thought that we were going to just remove the grass and have dirt underneath and then lay these beds and then fill them with dirt. But instead we just decided to save ourselves some time, add this barrier to the bottom of the box, and eventually that would have the grass underneath start to die off, and hopefully no weeds will come through into the garden. Then I just flip them back over, put them in the place, making sure that's exactly where I want them in the yard, and then now we can edge. So we're just edging around the boxes because Shay cuts the grass and weed eats the grass every other day, and to make sure that we're not destroying the wood or creating nicks or stains in the side of the wood, he just wanted to create a little bit of a gap between where he'll be cutting the grass and weeding, so that there's not so much stain and damage that's happening to the outside of the boxes. So we'll be doing this around each side of the box. All right, those are the boxes finished. So the next step is to fill them up with the dirt that we're gonna be using. Luckily, our standing bed, we were able to continue to use the dirt that was in there from last year. So we just had to purchase some more dirt for our 4 new ones. All right, so for our garden dirt this year, we ended up going to Peterborough Landscape, which is on Keene Road, just off of Highway 7 in Peterborough. And we ended up getting their garden veggie mix. And we were suggested to do this by the people that work there and also a couple other people who had used their garden mix before and said it was phenomenal. So for our garden last year, I ended up purchasing the Pro Mix organic mix, and I actually really liked that because of how fluffy it was, but it was just very expensive. So to fill these 4 garden beds would have been such a substantial cost, and this just ended up being so much cheaper, and also it's a great blend. So we're going to be filling this up in each box, and then we're also going to be adding some sheep and cow manure as well, just to help with extra fertilization and making sure that this garden is an absolute success. And for the sheep and cow manure, we also got this at the Peterborough Landscape, and it's called Farford. And we're just mixing a quarter of the bag per each box just for a little extra boost of nutrients. And we're just kind of lure Harper back into the backyard. They've been spending so much time out front while we've been doing our front gardens that now they just feel like they can walk from the front yard to the backyard whenever they want to, but Harper cannot be trusted. She loves to socialize, so who knows where she would end up in our neighborhood. So that was a very quick summary of us putting the new beds in place in our backyard and also filling each of our new boxes. So don't be fooled, this process took several hours and maybe a couple disagreements, but we are so happy with the finished product. We are going to leave these beds to sit for a few days just to make sure that they don't require any more dirt, and we are going to water them just to get them prepped for when we transport our seedlings and our new seeds into the bed. So that is the next step of this video, and it's probably the part that I am most excited for. All right, now that you've seen our new garden beds and how we decided to lay them out in our yard and also the process of filling them up, I am ready to start to plant my seeds. I'm also going to give you guys an update on my seedlings and my backup plan for my seedlings as well too. So I have all of my seeds out here ready to go, ready to plant, and I'm just organizing them based on how I originally had planned them out. So if you didn't watch my very first video of this series about my seedlings, go check it out. I will leave the link in my comments for you to look at and see how I decided to companion plant my seeds this year. So before I dive into that, I just want to show you this really cool tool that my neighbor has lent me to help me plant my seeds. I feel like I'm a little bit more confused now that I've seen it, but this is it. It is called the seeding squares. This is the first time I've ever even seen it, but I'm excited to use it, or at least try to use it. So basically it comes with this tool thing that tells you basically inches. So every seed is going to require a different structure, but there's a whole guide on how to follow it. So I'm going to follow this slightly, but also just follow the instructions on the back of each of my seed packages as well too, because that really has all the details that you need on that as well. So an update on my seedlings. Are you ready? You're going to be so amazed and so impressed. I'm just kidding. I didn't grow this. I wish I grew this. I actually picked up some organic plants from Costco this week because I was a little nervous on my seedlings, and I built these garden beds really being hopeful that everything will sprout and flourish, and I am still hopeful, but I did want to have just a backup plan to have some matured plants going in the garden so that I wouldn't be super disappointed if nothing survived. So I got grape tomatoes, I got cherry tomatoes, I got a zucchini plant, and then also a jalapeno pepper. I found this year I actually couldn't find any organic jalapeno seeds, so I had been on the hunt for this, and I'm really happy that I was able to find one. And honestly, these are the only certified organic plants I've seen all season at any grocery store or any greenhouse as well. Even the main greenhouses that we went to, there was no certified organic plants, and I've mentioned several times it's really important to me. So I actually picked up this tray, so it was just 4 plants, and it was $10.99 at Costco. They didn't have a huge selection of different varieties of plants, but these are actually ones that I really wanted to make sure that I had in the garden, so I was happy with this planter. So the real seedlings. I will show you my progress. Okay, these are my first set of babies. In the back row, we have the pepper plants, red peppers, which they actually are holding strong and steady. I'm really happy with them. I hope that they withstand the transfer into the garden and continue to strengthen and flourish. And then these are my tomato plants, which are not as successful as I hoped, but we still got some good seedlings here, hopefully survive the transfer. As I said already though, I did pick up 2 tomato plants just in case they don't survive, and I'm also going to plant direct seed as well for tomatoes and peppers and just see the results as to what turns out better. And I also will say all of the ways to prevent the lagging happening for some of these, like in here, which means they just kind of fall over because the stems aren't strong enough and they sprouted too quickly. I tried lots of different things. I tried feeding water from the bottom. I tried obviously the cover. I tried having them outside, kept the fan on to strengthen them up. So I did do quite a bit of trial and error for these, but they just didn't succeed as much as I wanted to. But let me tell you, this tray is much better than the other one, and I will show you that now. Yep, they're pretty pathetic looking. Pretty pathetic. So the first row here is the kale. Very laggy. These sprouted honestly within like a day of planting them. It's been hard to slow down the process. And then this side is the broccoli. Same thing. They just sprouted so quickly. So I've been trying to replant them. I've done the method in putting them outside, trying to strengthen up the stems. But I think that they just need to be planted deeper. Maybe, hopefully. So I am going to transfer these and fingers crossed that they'll survive, but I also am going to plant some seeds and see what turns out better as well. So those are my seedlings. As I mentioned in my first seedling video, I wasn't too hopeful with the seedlings because I didn't have the greatest success last year, and I feel like the more people I talk to also don't have the best success with seedlings. I think it really depends on temperature and also like air quality in terms of like ventilation, and maybe I just don't have that down to a T. As I mentioned, I'm still gonna plant some seeds directly into the garden and then just see what the better option is. So right now I'm going to pop over to the garden beds, and before I actually put the seeds in the ground, I'm going to plan them out based on what I had originally planned for companion planting, and I'm just going to mark them out using these little tags. So I got these at the dollar store like months ago, and I'm just going to write like tomatoes, cucumbers, carrots on these, and then just start to lay them out so I know exactly where I want them before I decide to actually put the seeds in the ground. And then the next step after that is I'm going to actually put the holes or dig the little trenches out, and I'm going to do a time lapse of this entire process for you guys to see. So let's head over to the garden and start to plan. Alright, so I did have to make a couple changes to my original companion planting just because I had more seeds and sprouts than I expected. But in my first bed, I'm going to be having tomatoes and red peppers. In this one, we are having cucumbers, beans, and sunflowers. In my third garden bed, I'm going to be planting kale and broccoli. And then in my last lower garden bed, I'm going to have lettuce, carrots, and beets. In my raised standing garden bed, I am going to have jalapenos, zucchini, and celery. Alright, I started strong using the seeding square, and to be honest, I just got more and more confused. I had to start over a couple times, and it just didn't align with what's said on the back of the package for the distance of seeds. So I just ended up going with the directions on the back of the package and used a basic ruler just to measure the distance between each seed, and just fingers crossed and hope for the best. I really prefer things to be more simple, and personally the seed square just made it a little bit more complicated for me to figure out. So ruler or eyeballing is just as good. You don't need all the fancy tools when you're planting your seeds. So for this garden bed, I am planting carrots, beets, and lettuce. And I just decided to make the trenches and drop the seeds in. And the reason I decided to do this was because it saved so much time. And I also remember doing this as a kid. It was more creating the trenches and then dropping them in. I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but this is what I did for these ones. In my raised garden bed, this is where I'm putting the jalapeno peppers. So I do have 2 other plants that I'm going to plant in here, but I just started with the one, and hopefully this will spread out and thrive very good in this condition. Next up is our zucchini plants. Again, I have 1 other plant that I'm going to put in here as well too, and hopefully there's enough space for both of them. And then lastly is celery. I was gonna plant this beside the cucumber and beans, but I just ran out of space, so I decided to add it in here and figured it would go just as well with the zucchini. These seeds are so small, I was a little bit nervous just to plant 1 seed in each little hole, so I planted about 2 or 3 seeds, and then I'll just see if they all sprout up, and if I have to remove the weakest link, then I will do that. All right, this is the transplanting part. So I'm picking the strongest tomato and pepper seedlings and transporting them into the boxes, and hopefully they will grow. These tall ones are ones I got from Costco, so they are already flourishing. And then in this final row, I decided to plant some seeds directly and see what happens there. Now we're transporting the broccoli, and I just have a couple seedlings I'm transferring because they are supposed to grow pretty big. And then next up is our kale. So I didn't have very many seedlings of this survive, so I am doing quite a bit of seed as well. And they are mostly hardy, so they should last through the summer. Next up, giving it a big old drink of water, nice and hydrated. And last step is a positive affirmation. Dear plants, seeds, and seedlings, you can thrive in any environment you're put in. All right, guys, that pretty much wraps up this video. As I mentioned, this was filmed over a series of days. It was very challenging to see the big picture of this video, but I hope you guys get the gist of what our plans are for our 2021 garden this year. And if you guys have any tips for me in gardening, please drop them in the comments below. As I mentioned, I'm so new at this, so I would definitely love any type of recommendation or feedback, and I will give you guys an update throughout the summer as well too. As I mentioned, this is new for us, so we have a lot of different factors that are playing into whether or not these gardens actually grow, seeing the difference between the raised bed versus the lower beds, seeing the types of dirt that we used in both of those beds and if that played a difference. Also the environment, whether we're getting enough sunlight there, too much shade, and lastly, if Huntley and Harper can stay out of them or not. So I'll let you guys know, keep you guys posted. Also, please make sure that you guys like this video so I know that you want to see more videos of my garden this summer, and be sure to subscribe to my channel. It supports me more than you know, and it really brightens my day every time I see a new subscriber or a new comment on these videos. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will keep you guys posted on my garden, and if you are starting a vegetable garden, I wish you the best of luck. Fingers crossed for us all that we get lots of delicious and nutritious vegetables this season. Thank you guys again, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!